Yeah, today we'll read about the lectures about philosophy of Sahaj Marg by Dr. K.C.V. This is lecture number 17. So I'm going to read it. The topic which is dealt with in the final chapter of the book is on the stages of spiritual progress in this path. Master has given an illustrated diagram consisting of about 23 concentric circles, and the first outer 5 circles are the sphere of Maya, and then the 11 circles following it are called the circles of egoism, and then 7 circles or rings of splendor, and lastly a vacant space which leads you to the center itself. This is merely a diagrammatic representation of the stages which every Abhyasi will have to pass through till he attains oneness with the ultimate godness, that is the center. The circles of Maya start in the heart and the human heart, and they gather momentum till we reach a stage somewhere about what is called the Agnya Chakra. Above it, you have the sphere of egoism, and these egoisms are 11 by the circles, but actually they are infinite. They are more and more rarefied till finally you cross over to the higher regions of splendor, that is called the regions of light. Most people in the past have not gone, according to Sri Ramchandraji, beyond these 16 circles. And the 16th circle ends up near somewhere the Sahasradala, which is said to be the highest point capable of being reached according to the Kundalini Yoga. Beyond that, one gets out of the body. There is what is called the Brahmarandra, through which an individual passes out of the body. The physical existence is impossible according to those previous thinkers when we reach the Sahasradala. Anything?
No.
Everything is clear, then we'll go ahead.
Yeah.
But according to Rajayoga of Sri Ramchandraji, we can pass on even when we are in this body through the 7 circles of splendor or rings of splendor. Here is a great truth investigated so far, and this is the discovery of Sri Ramchandraji. And even beyond the 7 rings of splendor is a vast ocean in which the souls go on swimming till they reach the ultimate godness. Now, this shows a very big prospect before an Abhyasi. That it could be achieved even in his own lifetime is another great fact about this system. He further states that every Abhyasi from the first center onwards will have to pass through 4 stages. These 4 stages are described by him in this way. The first stage is when we feel that the divine force pervades all over in the body. The second stage is when we have constant remembrance of its pervading our entire body. The third stage is when we have neither the pervasion nor its remembrance. And the fourth stage is when we feel everything dropping. It is a stage of beyond negation. Now, these 4 stages we have to pass through at every point. I believe in another work called Towards Infinity, he describes 3 states at each point. Saralata or spontaneity, or the free move of energy of the divine, which is introduced into the heart through pranahoti. The second stage is sayujjata, when we feel oneness. And the third stage is laya, when we are so merged in it that we are not aware of it. Even the awareness passes away at that stage. We gather sufficient power to move towards the next center. So the fourth stage is when we feel that we are leaving the point which we have now experienced and move towards the next. The goneness feeling is due to this leaving the previous point and we can go to the next one. This is what he has now added in the latest volume. It was not mentioned so clearly in the work Towards Infinity. These 4 stages occur at each point. That is why the Abhyasi feel that they are progressing and suddenly everything seems to be lost. They feel as it were, they are going backwards, or what they have got has been lost. Now it is not so. If we understand these 4 stages, it only shows that we are moving towards the next point. And at the next point, we find the same feeling or sensation of divine force entering and pervading as from that point. Each point has a particular and peculiar experience about it. We find gradually that we become lighter and lighter. Sometimes we do feel colors about the place. The first one like yellowish, second one as white, the third one as red, the fourth one as black or dark. Now Master says, we feel a kind of shadowy darkness just before we go to the Agnya Chakra, or when we pass from the world of Maya or the sphere of Maya to the world of Brahma or Brahmanda or mind. The mind region then is called Brahmanda. Mind becomes wider at this stage. Mind which is particularized at the earlier stage becomes vaster at this stage. We become expanded. In other words, the sense of expansion only will be felt at the stage. And many people think that this stage is the stage of liberation. And when you enter Brahmanda, we do not come back to the physical world of Maya. But that is not so, according to the Master. Beyond this, we have got to go a very long way. Now at the point which is about the sphere of head, you find a peculiar difficulty with some of the other factors. At the Agnya Chakra, there is a power capable of spreading downwards to all parts of your body. This power gives many siddhis to people, and that is why many people want to call it Agnya Chakra, where we order anything. But personally, I call it Ajna Chakra, that is the place of ignorance, where we are likely to misuse the power for ordering and doing things which are not intended for. So we have to go onwards. Then starts what we call the great endeavors to conquer our ego. Egoism comes to us. The body consciousness is gone, but the ego consciousness is on. We do not feel very much about the body. We have got rid of the Dehatma Brahma, but the Atma Brahma goes on, that we are the self and we have got substantiality and individuality to protect. But at that stage, we do not feel that ego is a mistake. And therefore, we try to become selfless. We practice selflessness. That is, we must go above ego. And this kind of giving up of ego through selflessness or renunciation of self is a very, very gradual process and has many forms. It becomes subtler and subtler till finally when it is pushed into the central region, when it almost loses its original shape. At that stage, I believe we have neither self nor selflessness. We reach a stage where there is neither self nor selflessness. The contradiction is over. Now at this stage, there is just expansion. No doubt there is the central region, which everybody now in this system is expected to aspire for. But it is not easy except with the help of a master who tries to hold both the heart and the entire system so that we can reach into the central region without breaking up our physical body. Master speaks about this aspect when even the whole constitution of the physical body will have to be changed by breaking up the particles within the body and releasing the energy for the whole system. It is a very great work, and I believe hardly anyone except the master now knows to do it and many times it requires the actual presence of the disciple with the master for considerable time. And that is why at that stage, master wants the disciple or abhyasi with him. It is very, very difficult and unknowable work because no preceptor normally, I think, knows to do that work. Now, this peculiar experience of the central region is one of negation. One does not feel that he exists. That is, the ego is gone. And he says that such an experience is not usually aspired after by people who clamor for experience because there is nothing, but it has its own charm. It is a world of infinity. I was yesterday reading an article in the American Review where the author believes in what is called Clarke's law, which states the only way to know the limits of the possible is to go beyond to the impossible. Now, that particular law attracted me very much, as any other law normally attracts me. I felt it is something that we have felt, that the only way to know the limited Atma is to go to the impossible, unknowable Brahman. Now we are going beyond Brahman in this system. Brahman himself is a condition. We have got to go to the infinity, which is beyond Brahman or Parabrahman even. That is why in this system, the Parabrahman is considered to be possible because it is within the range of human possibility. We are now going to understand this mystery, which was not cleared up. If it was cleared up, we would have had passage to the infinity long ago. And the experience of infinity and the vastness and unconditionedness is something that is transcendent to all that we want. So no adequate description can be given. But this much can be said, that we are passing, expanding and expanding till finally even those things are gone and a stage of changelessness occurs. At this stage also, Master says the Master is necessary because that the individual himself, the ego swimming in that particular place, in the vastness, can create certain waves which impede this further progress. I do not know. Possibly I can describe it because I am no swimmer. But I think swimmers know that they can create by keeping certain rings of water which prevent them from moving further. It must be like floating with substance and it might not be merely floating. Our aspiration must be there to reach the very center. Now the Master says, perhaps in order that we could identify that the divine, even at the place, has a ring round him which does not permit him to enter into us. Now this distinction is kept on. This individuality is kept on between the individual self and the divine, even at the point of ultimate realization. But it may be withdrawn, and everything can be withdrawn into him when the great pralaya occurs. Now, there are many theories about the matters, but I believe it is all very speculative. Theories about trying to preserve oneself and speak about all the laws of causality and applying to God or that condition of infinity are meaningless to me. When you are known, these laws have to be discovered within limits, and the limits of the divine are not limits at all. They are infinite. So I do not think we can intelligibly think of God in his infinity, though we can certainly speak about God in his finiteness. Maybe that God appears to us finite, but it is merely to induce us to go into his infinity. And I think most people try to call God infinite, though they actually believe in the finite. That is why our religion is full of contradictions. Real spirituality goes beyond and wants to live in infinity and for infinity till we reach God and know God in his infinity. That would be realization. Liberation is a very small thing. As I said, even crossing the Brahmanda might be considered to be liberation. According to our system, getting into the central region may be considered to be liberation. That is because we reach into the stage and go on expanding, and there are no forces which can bind us. The causes of that condition which bring forth bondages or limitations are utterly removed at the central region. But I may personally say, even at that stage, one could carry on certain very subtle difficulties, which only a master who is aware of that particular area in the subtlest form can remove. And that is a very hard job. That is why we have in this system very good promises, not merely ideals which can be realized, but could be demonstrated within the lifetime of an Abhyasi. What takes millions of years or many lives in other systems, or in the natural course of centuries, would be made possible in a lifetime. And yoga is this concentration of energy, evolution within a lifetime. And that is why yoga is a special process which contracts time and space and number of lives by bringing God's own energy in his ultimate form and making it do the work of taking us into the ultimate state. It must be the will of God that mankind is given the opportunity to achieve this end. Therefore, it is said, to be born a man is a great boon. And it is very difficult to be born a man. It is perhaps the grace of God alone that makes a person be born a man. And that is why man becomes the vessel of God's grace. That is why God can and does take up the work of taking up man to the ultimate stage. I have given just a general summary and perhaps a little elucidation on the many points in this most important work which Master has given to us in his philosophy of Sri Ramchandra's Rajayoga. For us, the important thing I think we should understand is you can never understand God by thinking or logic, or you can understand God only if you merge in him. That means layavastha. That means the mind should become one with the object of meditation. That is samadhi. Samadhi is you become one with. And then when that becomes totally absorbed in you, then you move to the next stage. So it's more of purifying yourself so that you'll be able to achieve layavastha. At each stage, we have to merge into that condition of that state.
Any questions, anyone?
Just drink water and then we'll read Babuji's article. If any questions are there, or any discussion about it.
Yeah, I'll share that one in the meeting.
Yoga is basically discipline unless we commit ourselves very seriously to the practice without break, without missing even a single day practice. If you read Sir's commentary on towards inability, at higher stages, he keeps on talking about unless you do your cleaning thoroughly, rigorously, it will not be possible to retain those states. So, first of all, personally, our breakfast, lunch, or whatever, we cannot miss our daily practice at any cost. Because the mind says, no, today we have to go to the party, we'll miss, means each interruption will take you back quite a long way. Without interruption, we should practice, then we can see the progress. So we'll read this article about surrender. So this is an article letter written by Babuji to some Abhyasi. So I'm going to read this article because finally, spirituality is basically living in harm, our relationship with the world, our relationship with our friends, relatives, nature and all that. And when realization happens, you are in tune with nature. Like fourth commandment says, be plain and simple to be in tune with. We are in harmony with ourselves. We are harmony with nature. We are harmony with all good and bad people in the world, so-called good and bad. Everything is in a state of harmony, actually. And for that, the most essential factor is your negation of the ego is required. That means the awareness that you are a separate person from the world, that has to go. And that can go only by surrender. So all aim of practice is to develop humility and surrender. So unless you're very firm on this fundamental conceptual idea, at least, then practically we can practice to uh, follow the Babuji's advice that you cannot do surrender directly, because if you do surrender, ego is there. So surrender should happen naturally. It will happen if you develop devotion, or he says you practice dependency on God always. And once you practice dependency, that will develop devotion. And at some stage, without your knowledge, surrender happens. Then ego is gone. Then your goal is reached. So that's why I thought we should read about surrender. So we'll read this article, Surrender. In this era, the mind has become so restive and fickle that it is difficult to find a parallel. Some have problems finding a job. Others have increased their requirements to such an extent that their meager earnings are insufficient. If we take the example of those with money, God has given them everything, but even then there is no contentment. The worry is only how to add to it. Okay, maybe it is not this. So then what is the worry? The reason, medium, and instruments by which wealth has been earned should remain as is. So the person keeps himself occupied in surveillance of the same and always remains in a dilemma and full of uncertainty. To be exact, he is not at ease. A businessman in America was questioned as to how much money he had, and he said around $1.6 billion. If the money he had were to be thrown into sea at the rate of 1 unit per second, it would take around 52 years and 181 days. Listening to this, he was asked if he is happy with his present fortune. In fact, the fellow who sleeps on a stone pillow after a hard day's work is happier. The crux of the matter is to what extent it should be elaborated. Someone is worried on account of his children and another because of his health. Everyone is engrossed in their lives. What should I write besides the fact that this is a paradox? The best condition is that which keeps you happy and contented. All great saints and souls have given priority to adversity and hard work. One mendicant prayed, "O God, give me all the sufferings of the world." These are the souls who have reached the apogee of progress, entered the sphere of permanent joy, and become immortal. Now the circumstances we have developed float in the universe, and having reached there, acquire a strength that strikes everyone's heart. The effect that is created is proportional to one's capabilities. If the condition is used to develop a state of non-attention to the above matters and to make this into a perpetual habit, then for sure we are free of these matters to a large extent. I think it's a Persian. Gulame himmate anam ki zere charkhe kabud, जहरचे रंग ताल्लुक पिंजरा दो अंज ओस्त. I live under the blue sky and reflect whatever colors it assumes. A mendicant or a saint is no different than us. The only difference is that his heart is contented and his desires are under his command. His nature does not flow in the current of worldly colors. He has his own sort of color, and he ultimately adapts himself into a state of colorlessness. This results in detachment, which gives him ease and peace of the highest order. How is this possible? The answer in brief is that he is never free from his own restlessness and yearning. I have been experiencing this condition. The joy is known only to my heart. Please understand this paradox of joy and agony. God willing, the joy and agony of this sort, the very soul of love, will be bestowed upon everyone. If this philosophy is explained, page after page will be filled. The pleasure of wheat is in its eating. Let me come to the point. It is everyone's solemn duty to care for his livelihood, and nothing is wrong in praying if patience runs out. We should approach God in all humility and pray. He can do everything, and he will when it is needed. In such situations, prayers will be granted. We are all dependent on his wish and order. Without his consent, even a leaf of a tree cannot move. Great saints have left everything to his wish. Their every belonging has been surrendered at his altar. This itself is called self-surrender. We cannot even see him without his wish. We are meek and he is almighty. So when we are saying, "Oh Master, thou art the real goal of human life," when we think about Babuji also, when we think of Master, the idea that it is a supreme force which is controlling everything should also come to your mind automatically. If it is not coming, at least you dwell on that idea for quite a long time, or every day make it into a practice to dwell on the idea when you think about the Master or God. You have to think that it is a supreme force which controls everything in this world. And which is actually the supreme force only helps our heart to beat, our digestion to happen. Everything is actually happening to that, but we are recognizing the truth and then allowing that idea to get imprinted on our consciousness. That is very important. Otherwise, you will not be motivated to surrender to a powerless God. Unless you know that he's all powerful, you'll not make much progress at all. I'll read again because this is important. Let me come to the point. It is everyone's solemn duty to care for his livelihood, and nothing is wrong in praying if patience runs out. We should approach God in all humility and pray. He can do everything and he will when it is needed. In such situations, prayers will be granted. We are all dependent on his wish and order. Without his consent, even a leaf of a tree cannot move. This is important. Great saints have left everything to his wish. Their every belonging has been surrendered at his altar. This itself is called self-surrender. We cannot even see him without his wish. We are meek and he is almighty. You mentioned that you are not able to read the condition. The answer is this depends mostly on practice. Many people judge the nature and condition of a person as soon as he comes before them, and they assess what sort of a personality he is based on their experience, affection, and association. With perseverance, you start experiencing. Even otherwise, you can certainly feel things that cannot be translated into words. This again, you see, this is an inherent capacity is inbuilt into human brain actually. It's called a right-sided brain function. When anybody wishes you, says good morning or namaste, uh, the seriousness or the sincerity with which is wishing you is perceived by your brain. You will feel it actually. So this is nothing difficult about it. All of us feel it, but because we have been, we want everything to be explicit. We want it should be expressed in clear words or clarity. That's why all these problems come. But if you learn to give respect to your feelings when you meet a person straight away, it's very easy to study the condition. It is a good thought that you surrender yourself to the master. You mention in your letter that to understand can at times become the reason for ego. I would not call it understanding if it culminates in ego. If your ideal is high, you will realize that all these are matters of the journey. Besides, if there is any condition and joy thereof, they should be taken as gifts from the master. And they are gifts from master, how can ego surface? The rest you can ask and know when we meet in person. This is all due to the grace of our elders, which we experienced during Janmashtami. This grace shall pave the way for everyone who observed this fast. If this is remembered at the time of death, this grace will have reserved their place. Otherwise, whoever takes my place or those people who become like me will have this responsibility after me. I think that's the end of our reading session. Anybody wants to contribute to the discussion, whatever. Because it's my personal journey. I'm sharing my own ideas. Whenever we use the word master, or whenever we use the word we are slave of fishes, it is more of a language which is very superficial in its impact in the mind. It's your whole being doesn't feel about master, or whole being doesn't feel that you are a slave of fishes. Unless that is cultivated by practice, you're not entering into true spirituality actually. क्या धर्मेश और कुछ है क्या?
नहीं, I think this is a lot for today.
नहीं, प्रैक्टिस की बात है बस.
It's a condition. Covered a lot of
And
different
ultimately we should aim for surrender. Consciously you should know, but then method you have to follow as he says. I mean, surrender happens, and then you when surrender happens, then you know it is just like the rope and the serpent phenomena. Suppose you can either see the rope or the serpent. If the serpent is visible, rope is not there. If rope is visible, serpent is not there. If you feel God, the world doesn't exist for you. I mean, it will be unity. Everything you will feel as a part of your own self. And if you feel the world is real, to that extent, you're not seeing God. So when surrender happens, you'll find the presence of God in everybody. There's no friend or foe there. There's no good or bad person. Everybody is an expression of God, and then universal love will be there. So at least theory we know, but we should question ourselves whether we are reaching that state or not. Okay, फिर
Yeah, we'll meet
you will
next week.
we'll meet next week. Yeah.